All right, welcome to the Get Back with Dombek podcast. I'm Andrew Dombek, your host. We are sponsored by my clinic, AID Performance Physical Therapy. Today's guest is another hometown hero, a graduate of Broad Run High School, and is currently pitching for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with this young man at the crux of his college baseball career. At the time, we were trying to prevent and get ready for Tommy John surgery, which, if you don't know, is a surgical procedure where they you tear your medial collateral ligament, an ulnar collateral ligament, and oftentimes pitchers are tearing that. The surgery is called Tommy John, and unfortunately occurs all too often, like I said before. But despite ultimately having to have the procedure and the termination of his college baseball's program, our next guest persevered and proved he literally has the right stuff. Please welcome Taylor Clarke. Thanks for being on, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I big fan. It's been a while since I've seen you. Are you still working out with? Is Reese still doing your workouts, or you got a new guy doing?
Ever since this is my first off season that I hadn't been with Reese, just because we moved to Arizona. So I just liked having someone hands on here. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It's always, and he and I have talked about that. I think he's a guest coming up. We think a lot with COVID, there was a lot of injuries because of people not being able to be hands-on with their trainers and getting video. Have you seen, is that, with other guys with increased injuries because of COVID not being able to be hands-on?
I don't know. I think it's more just because of the shorter season last year, guys not getting their normal workload and their normal build-up. It's kind of catching up to a lot of people and a lot of teams this year. I mean, heck, we got like 10 or 12 guys on the DL right now. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of other teams kind of battling with it, especially like soft tissue injuries. So I think it's kind of just from the shorter season last year, only playing 60 games when we usually play 162, and it's just kind of catching up to people.
Yeah, I bet. Now, how is your arm holding up? I know you're injured now, but you switched from being a starting pitcher to a reliever. Do you think the increased playing time has been a reason for your injury? What's going on?
I mean, I don't have an exact answer to it. I mean, everything was feeling really good. This is my first arm injury I ever had since Tommy John. So I had Tommy John in 2013. So what was that, like 8 years with no arm issues? So I think it was kind of just like a weird thing that happened, where maybe it could have been attributed to like pitching in the bullpen. Body just wasn't quite acclimated to pitching like at back-to-back days or 4 or 5 times a week, compared to the starter where you're kind of built up and you have your routine and your schedule, or you're scheduled to pitch every fifth day. That could have been like an attribute to it, but at the end of the day, no one really knows. So
Did you have any idea that this was coming, that your move to the bullpen? Did they give you any indication, or this was something that just as the season progressed?
no, not really. Like I kind of knew coming out of camp, like you start kind of counting like spots, and it's like you knew that like I got built up as a starter, but I knew to make the team, it was probably going to be in the bullpen. And that was kind of like what they told me or hinted at, like in beginning of spring training. And last year I kind of went back and forth with it. I was like long guy out of the bullpen, and then I spot started, and then we had a few injuries, so I kept starting, stuff like that. And then this year it's been more of like your typical, like 1 to 2 innings out of the bullpen. And so I kind of like, once spring training went on, I started to kind of like figure it out. It's just like this is probably what my best chance of making the team is.
You got to do what you got to do. What do you like? Do you like, coming out of the bullpen, or, I know you and I talked about this earlier this year, but the audience may not know.
I like the bullpen. It's just, I like kind of going in for like that 1 inning, like being able to blow it out a little bit. And also just like pitching like late in games, like you have a little bit more adrenaline going on, and just like the thought of like being able to pitch every day is like sits better with me.
I mean, yeah, is this, I mean, you're topping, I've seen you hit like 98 miles per hour. I mean, Is that because you just know that, hey, it's just one inning and I can just go balls to the wall?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't like try to overthrow, but you don't have to save it up for 100 pitches. I mean, you work in 10 to 20 pitches almost every time, where it's like, hey, you can air it out a little bit. And so, yeah, it's been nice to kind of see the velo jump up a little bit.
So let's rewind a little bit. Let's tell us about your journey of, you being drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks. You went, you played at Broad Run. How many schools were looking at you after, from Broad Run?
Broad Run, coming out of high school, I had 2 college offers. It was Bucknell and Towson. And I went on a visit to Towson and liked it there. So I kind of just committed there, like going into my senior year. And I felt like I had a pretty good chance at like pitching right away. So that was, and it was like relatively close to home, like I think an hour and a half from Virginia. So that's kind of like what sold me.
So you're at Towson, and then I think we didn't know that the program was being shut, or you had an inkling that the program was getting shut down before you had the surgery, right?
Yeah. So like going into my, like when I got there freshman year, everything was pretty normal. Like threw pretty well my freshman year. Like started Saturdays, like kind of like early on, and then towards the second half of the year, I started like having some elbow discomfort, and that's when we shut it down. And like they kind of recommended like the rest and rehab, and that summer is the one when I started coming to you. And so we just kind of worked at like trying to prevent it and get it going. And then went back my sophomore year, like trying to build back up in this fall, and it just never got better. Went and got like another MRI, and they showed like straight 50-50 tear of it. And that's when I like proceeded to go ahead with Tommy John surgery, because there was really like, it's such a gray area, the doctors kept telling me. But like at that point in my career, it was like kind of like an easier decision, like early on, especially if I wanted to play several years down the road. They said, get it now, and or else you're going to keep thinking about it and all that. So got it in January of 2013, redshirted that year. And kind of all while that was going on, our athletic director and president at Towson at the time like announced that they were going to cut the baseball team. So they said men's soccer and baseball were going to be eliminated after that 2012-2013 season. And that was in the fall when they announced it. So we were kind of like put together a little like committee, and we tried to like rally up like best we could to like pretty much just save the program. And eventually I think February or March of 13 in that spring, they announced they were going to cut it. So like it was official. So once that happened, everyone had like a free like blanket release to transfer wherever without having to worry about sitting out a year. And so I still had 3 years of eligibility, and then kind of pitched well enough my freshman year that I had more of I had more interest in me, like more schools to choose from after that, for where I could transfer to. But yeah, while that was going on, I mean, there was some sketchy stuff going on behind the scenes, like fudging with a lot of the numbers, and just like some real shady stuff going on between the president and the AD, both of whom were gone within the next year. Like the president was out, the AD was out. And it went as far as like we got the Governor Martin O'Malley at the time to step in, and they helped shift some like state funds around to keep baseball afloat. I think soccer is still eliminated as far as I'm aware, but they were claiming Title IX issues, all this, whereas like I think they were in like a deep hole like they were in the red from like funneling all this money towards football and their basketball teams at the time that they kind of like, they needed like to make up money elsewhere. So, but yeah, once they got out, I think Martin O'Malley stepped in, they kind of redid the budget and the team they kept the team. I don't think they missed like any years at all. I ended up pitching against them the next 2 seasons. Yeah, like once I had my release, I had a bunch of interest, and the first school calling was College of Charleston, and that's how I ended up down there. They called me, flew me down for a visit. I watched a couple games that weekend, fell in love with the school and the city.
Oh, city's beautiful. And, love it down
there.
Yeah,
I just thought it was a great fit, and so it was kind of like too hard of an opportunity to pass up. So that's how I ended up there.
It turned out pretty well. I mean, that year it must have been hard watching your team, because didn't they compete for the title in the division that year?
Yeah, so they definitely had a chip on their shoulder, like playing that season. It was tough, like being out, like just watching. Like that was the first time I was like not being able to be out there on the field and compete. So I had to kind of like deal with that like mentally. Yeah, they put together a good season. They made it to the regionals. Like they won the CAA tournament that year. They had to get that was their automatic bid into the next level, like into the field of 64, and they won it. And then I think they competed pretty well. And they were in Chapel Hill, and I think they won a couple of games. Yeah, I was rooting for those guys, but just like for me personally, it was like a good situation for me to get out, like to go elsewhere.
It turned out pretty well. Tell me about your career at College of Charleston. I know about it. I followed you when you were there, but tell me how that went. You were there 2 years,
good.
Right?
Yeah. So I went in there still recovering from Tommy John. I was like, when I got there in the fall, I was probably about like 8 months out. So still kind of recovering from it. And I was a redshirt sophomore, so I still had 3 years of eligibility all left there. But kind of like just rehab there throughout the fall and got like started pitching in games towards probably around Thanksgiving. Like everything was going well. The rehab was going well. Everything was feeling good. And then pitched that whole season of 2014, like pitching like Friday nights for them, and had like a pretty good year, and our team was really good. We went to the super regionals, like 2 wins away from the College World Series, and we lost 1-0. So that was tough. And then the next year, like just came back like way stronger. Velo jumped up. I think it was just, they always say like once you feel your best, like 18 to 24 months out after surgery. So that first year I was back, but I wasn't all the way back, if that makes sense. Like it was kind of like an up and down year. And then the next year, like once I was fully recovered, everything was feeling really good. I put some weight on. I came into that fall throwing pretty hard, like up to 95. And then like pitched my redshirt junior year, 2015. I had a really good season. And that's when I went on to get drafted. Like after following that season, like we went to the regionals, lost to Florida State, and then I got drafted like a week later.
Was it Texas A&M that you lost your redshirt sophomore year?
That was Texas Tech. That was the year we won our conference tournament, the CAA tournament. Got an automatic bid to go play Florida, so we were a 4 seed. Beat Florida that first night. I started that game. We beat Florida, and then we beat Long Beach State, and then we beat Long Beach State again to advance to the super regionals. Then we went to Lubbock, and we lost 1-0. And the first game I went 8 innings, 1 run, and we lost. We had 2 guys thrown out at the plate that game.
I remember that. There was some base running errors. I remember that. Yeah. That crushed you guys. I remember
we were the only team in college history to not score a run in the super regional.
Yeah, I remember there was two times. It was like guys got thrown out either at third or going home or something like that. It was
Yeah, going home twice, same guy. So that one was tough. The next year we had an even better team. Like statistically, like we were a way better hitting team. We had pitching was probably about the same. We were missing a couple like of our key pieces. But we had a pretty good team, and we were the 2 seed. We should have hosted. We kind of got robbed. We ended up going to Florida State.
oh,
I think we lost 3-2 to them the second game. I pitched the first night against Auburn. We won, lost to Florida State like 3-2, and then beat Auburn again, and then we lost in the championship.
now you get drafted. Was there much of a decision after that? You were named an All-American that year, right?
Yeah.
So was there much of a decision about going pro, or it was just pretty much you knew, like, I mean, you
No,
wanted
I mean, kind of going at this time, I had 2 kids on the way, so I was like, I got to make some money somehow. So, I mean, diapers ain't cheap, so I had to
no,
kind of,
diapers of form ain't cheap. No.
so yeah, I was all in on the draft.
That's funny you said that. I remember when you got drafted and you know they showed like your signing bonus. I was like, man, he ain't gonna see none of that. That's all going to diapers.
Yeah, that was the toughest part. I mean, I got like getting all that money and then just like, all right, you got to pay for formula, diapers, and daycare, and so that was tough. But I mean, it all worked out. It was worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got drafted like June 12th. They were born 5 days later, June 17th.
Oh man, what was a bigger moment? That's a tough.
I mean, my wife in the other room wants me to say the kids, but I don't know. Ken Drafter is pretty cool too.
That was a great week. I mean, shit.
Yeah, definitely life changing right there.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't say that. Not too many people can say that, I bet.
Yeah.
What was transition harder, going from college to minors or minors to the pros?
That's a good question. Probably minors to the pro, like AAA to the big leagues. Because when I got when I went to short season after I got drafted, so I pitched that summer of 2015 in Hillsboro, Oregon. It was kind of same for me. Like I kind of just went about it as normal. They didn't push me too hard because I threw a lot that year already in college. So I only threw like 20 something innings out of the bullpen. And went pretty well. We actually like won that league as our team. So that was a pretty cool like first experience in the pro ball. But once I kind of got adapted to it, like the next year, like getting acclimated to pitching every 5th day, because college you pitch every 7th day, once a week. Just once your body like kind of and your arm can like catch up to that, that was the biggest acclimation to it. But going from like the minor leagues up to the big leagues, kind of just like it was more like just I had to get like that sense of like you belong here. It's almost like you get up there and you're like, all right, happy to be here, and then it's like, all right, how can I stay here? How can I contribute? And so it's just getting over that hump of like being happy that I'm here and not wanting to get sent down to like, all right, like I belong here, and like just helping the team win, that type of stuff. So like learning to like kind of cope with that, I think was the biggest thing. And I feel like I finally got over that hump. Like it definitely took some time. But like going into this year, I think was like the biggest thing. Like once you start having success, you're like, all right, I belong here. I'm a big leaguer. I can do this. I can get these guys out. That was the biggest like sense of realization for me.
I'll come back to the minors, but didn't you set a couple records your first time, out in pros? Didn't you have like a hit?
That was my debut. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to toot my horn too much. I have a couple.
That's my job. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. So once I got drafted, I was the highest pick ever out of College of Charleston, like 76 overall first pick of the 3rd round. And then I got into pro ball that year. I didn't give up our earned run in 24 innings, like 0 ERA in 24 innings. And then I debuted April 20th of 2019. And I was the only person ever in MLB history to have a save and a hit in their debut. So
That's
maybe it'll pop up on Jeopardy one day and I'll get it right.
I bet it will. I bet it will. I bet it will. Now, to have that ERA, was that what I remember? Because Connor was going out to pitch in one of the leagues out there, and he said one of the leagues, because the air was thin out there, to be able to have. Is that the same league where you had the 0 ERA?
No, we were in like the Northwest League. So we were like Oregon, Washington. There's a team in Vancouver. There's a team in like Boise. That was it was a pretty good league to pitch in. He was probably talking about the PCL, which is like Pacific Coast League. That's our AAA. So our AAA is in Reno, which is like their elevation there is like 4,500 feet. So like thinner air, the ball flies farther. It also doesn't move the same. So it's pretty much like you're pitching in Denver, Colorado, which is like notorious for like the worst place to pitch. Your ball just doesn't move the same. So it's like you try to throw a change up that naturally like goes this way and it cuts like 6 inches the other way. So it's like cuts right down the middle. And the ball is it just doesn't do what you want. And then, but yeah, that whole league, that's why you see guys in AAA like, oh, they get called up and it's like, why are they calling this guy up? He has a 6 ERA, but it's like, those ballparks are a joke. Like Reno, the wind blows out every single day. And it's just, you can hit like a broken bat. I've seen so many broken bat, like home runs there, just guys getting jammed and balls just still carrying out. So, and then you go to some of these places and they're huge ballparks. So it's like, yeah, the fences are deep, but that means everything falls in. So not only do you have to respect the ball going over your head, all the little broken bat flares now fall in. So it's just it's a really hard league to pitch in. So it's kind of like, it kind of like helps you just like, you got to like, just roll with it basically.
Definitely humbling. I think Connor said, I think it's like where pitchers' ERAs go to die.
Exactly. Yeah.
The PCL. So talking about the Diamondbacks, what is it, the injuries that's causing or is it the division is just so tough? What's the problem this year?
I mean, we've had a lot of key guys injured. I think it's been tough. I mean, you're always going to play good teams no matter what. So that's not really an excuse. I mean, heck, we had a lot of good players. And it's just, we lost 4 of our 5 starters pretty quick. And we just had some guys that like had to like fill into roles like before maybe they were ready. And so our depth kind of got tested pretty quick. And then we had a lot of like key hitters out like that are starting to come back. Like we have a few guys like starting to come back here pretty soon. But yeah, and then just some of it's just not playing well. Like just we went on a bad stretch. I think we were like 17-15 at one point, like pretty good. And then all these injuries started happening and it just kind of snowballed on us. And that's when we started going on the pretty bad losing streaks.
Is it nice to have another guy from Ashburn on the team?
Yeah. So I always like kind of like bust his chops a little bit, like on a Stonebridge.
Especially this year.
Especially brought around like winning like state championship. I can hold that over him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we'll always like just randomly kind of like talk about like something from Ashburn or Virginia or whatever it is. So
how's Buskauskas doing? Is he injured? I only looked
He
up.
just came back like a couple of days ago. Like he had like a nerve issue in his elbow where he kind of couldn't feel his hand.
Oh.
But he came up and he started pretty well. And then I think he's just kind of like trying to get over that hump like we were talking about earlier, like just trying to adjust where he just got to like learn not to like just limit his mistakes as much as possible and just limit walks, because in the big leagues it kind of gets exposed when you kind of like when you just can't, you got to limit your mistakes, I guess. The biggest thing.
Yeah. So with being out in Arizona now full time, is there anything that you miss from Ashburn at all? Other than mom and dad?
No, I mean, I don't know, a lot of like, I guess I still have like a decent amount of friends in the area, so I'd say that would be the biggest thing. But I don't know, I kind of like it out here. The summers suck, but like kind of get used to it a little bit. But it's like for the off season out here, like when I come back for Virginia, like I'll be back in October, and I'm there October to January, and I'm like, this kind of sucks. Like it's cold, it's like snowy, and I was like, I don't want to do all my throwing and stuff like that inside. So out here, like that's the best time to be out here is the off season. So that was probably like my favorite part about the move. It's just like I got to like experience a full off season outside.
Are you
And
golfing a
get
lot
plenty,
out there?
yeah, I get plenty of golf in on the off season.
Yeah. You any good?
I'm pretty good. I can like mid 80s usually. Good day, I'll run it down there a little bit.
Yeah. You got a lot of nice golf courses out there to choose
Yeah.
from, I bet. What you ever run into any guys that like any teammates or any other rivals,
From like where? Just
from like the CAA? I mean, I know you got JB or JD out there, but like, any other guys that
a little bit, like here and there. Kind of like few and far between. I guess like the CAA, like there's a few guys, like there's a guy like in our org right now, it's like went to UNC Wilmington. In the minors, I think I kind of ran across it a little bit more. But I'm starting to get like kind of removed from all that, where it's like guys are either not playing anymore. And so you just don't see them as much.
So to date, what's been your biggest strikeout?
I struck out Trout last year. That was pretty cool looking too. So one of my buddies will tell you that it was Harper because he was at the game. It was against like when he was with the Phillies, and like they were diehard DC like Nats fans. So I punched Harper out twice that game.
I remember that.
And I guess he's pretty bitter like about him leaving DC. So he was kind of fueled up by that one.
Yeah. You pitched down in Washington after that against Strasburg, didn't you?
Yeah.
You got a pretty good outing.
Weekend, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I gave it like 3 in the first and then kind of settled in after that. I think I was a little too amped up with everyone there.
Yeah. I think you guys wound up winning the game.
Yeah, we did. We had we saw Strasburg well. Yeah, it was good.
And I think that was the year the Nats won it all. So, and that was probably one of Strasburg's best years.
Yeah. He did really well in the postseason too.
Yeah. So, so far, was there any other sports that you played like growing up? You played basketball too?
I did basketball, yeah. Like played in like the Farmall Station League, and like I played like 2 years of Broad Run, but I was never very good. I was good for going in and fouling a couple people and chucking up a couple threes, and that was about it. And then I played golf for my first 3 years of Broad Run, but kind of like baseball was always like the main focus. Like basketball was kind of just there because my mom played in college. My older brother played it, so it's kind of just like it's just something to do. And then I was the only one in my family to play golf. It just kind of picked it up, and I was pretty good at it, so I played that for a little bit. But yeah, it's always like ironic to me with basketball. As soon as I stopped playing is when I shot up. Like I was like 5'3", 5'4" my sophomore year of high school, like playing basketball. And then as soon as I stopped playing, I grew like 6 inches that summer.
Was mom upset you stopped playing basketball?
No, I think she realized that baseball is the true love.
Now, coming up, you got a lot of kids that like to specialize early. Do you have any advice for those kids that are specialized in baseball super young?
Yeah, don't. Play as many sports as you can. Be athletic. I didn't specialize in baseball until I was like 16 or 17. Once I knew, like, I was like, all right, I can do this, like, college and maybe beyond. But just I think like some kids, like they just play like year round, and that's why you see a lot of kids blown out young or just falling out of the love of the you just don't love the game after so long. I mean, you play it 9, 10, 11 months out of the year, it's like kind of wears on you, and you're just like, hey, maybe I don't really like this sport anymore as much as I thought. So if you kind of just stick to it, like you can always just like go to the hitting cages like once a week or something like that, or pitch a little bit like throughout the off season. But for those travel teams like that play, I've heard kids like they don't play little league anymore. They just go travel ball, and then they go all throughout the summer, and then they pick it back up in the fall, and then they go throughout the winter. I'd be burned out.
It's so competitive around here. And I mean, I know better, and I run into my daughter's was just stubborn, and just, she was playing basketball, played a little volleyball, and it got to the point, it was so competitive. And I think she came back from an injury, and it was just like, I think she broke her wrist and then was coming back. She didn't have to sit out playing, she had to sit out basketball, but, could continue playing soccer with the broken wrist. But do you have any advice for, you overcame a major injury, what was it that helped you get through that challenge, that obstacle?
I don't know. I think it was more just like internally like motivated to get back, and like I feel like I had a lot of something to prove still. And so I think the biggest thing for me too is like going to a new school. I kind of like felt like, all right, I gotta get back. I gotta prove like something to prove like to this new team, like this new school that like gave me a scholarship to come pitch. So I think that's where a lot of my motivation to get through it came. And once I kind of like was able to do it and come back and have success, I was like, it was always just like the next step, like, all right, what can I like go on now? Like, what do I set my like sights on now? And that was always like getting drafted.
So after your long, and we hope very long, baseball playing career, do you have any plans for afterwards? Do you know what you want to do?
I don't know. I mean, I probably can't see myself in anything other than baseball. So even after playing, it might just be coaching, like whether it's college or like somewhere in the professional ranks, or like scouting or front office, something along those lines, probably.
Yeah. Did you, I know with COVID and everything, you were only a couple credits shy, weren't you, of graduating? Are you still kind of shy those? Cause I remember you telling me you had to go back to campus in order to complete the lesson.
Yeah. I took a few classes right after I left. I was probably like 5 short, like when I left. And then I've been gone for so long, the curriculum's changed. So I probably got like 8 left now. It's definitely something I want to do. My wife and mom keep pushing for it. So,
they won't put your name up. They won't retire your number or put your name up, right? Until you graduate.
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you donate a little bit of money that can go.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I got some bitterness towards College of Charleston right now. So
you say what?
I have some bitterness towards them still. Just the way they handled my pitching coach leaving and all that. So I don't know if you heard about all that. They kind of like booted him out, and it was a big witch hunt. He ended up filing a lawsuit against the school, and won. Like they settled it out of court.
Wow.
For his wrongful termination. So, and that was my guy. That was my pitching coach that kind of taught me almost everything I knew, like helped me take the next step. So once they kind of gave him the axe and they forced him out of school, that kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth. So they had a new coach in there and a new AD, but I'm not a fan of the new AD.
Is there anything that he gave you, or anything, off season that is like key to your performance that you do, or arm care, or anything like that, my listeners?
No, I mean, like arm care is like pretty standard. Like I still kind of do like he would, like everyone there, we did like as a pitching staff, we did like the Jaeger bands, which is like pretty typical, like it's pretty big program, like just the arm care routine, like pre-throwing, post-throwing with that. Once I got on that regimen, I feel like that helped kind of keep me healthy kind of throughout my career so far, mostly. The biggest thing I learned from him is like mentality pitching, like just you can't be scared out there. And it's just literally when you're on the mound, you're just trying to like punch the other guy in the face, like metaphorically speaking.
No, I
So
mean, Connor Mully had the same thing. Is like, this guy's trying to take your paycheck. That's why you got to get up there, that mentality.
yeah, exactly. So that was like the biggest thing I think I learned was just like having that, like developing that mindset and that mentality. I just learned a lot about like mechanics too and pitching from him. Just like learning like guy swings and like set sequencing and developing pitches. So I learned a lot of that under him. But the biggest thing I kind of took, like still used to this day, is the mentality of like going in and like you're gonna want to like, I don't want to say cuss word, but it's like F you, like you're gonna go out there and I'm gonna strike you out, like that type of mentality.
Yeah, you got to have that. So with your current injury, have you let them do any dry needling to you? I know how much you like it.
Yeah, no, I do. I've become like a pretty big fan of that the past couple of years. My body responds pretty well to it, actually.
Yeah, I told you, man. I told you.
I know. I know. I've come around to it. I used to be so sore at first, but once they started doing it, the more and more I kind of got it like acclimated to it. But yeah, like because right now I have a strained teres major, so I'm learning all about the lat and the shoulder, which is all new to me. So I hope to be back in a couple of weeks. So, but yeah, we definitely like been doing some needling, and they have all their other fancy machines and stuff that I'm not quite sure what to do.
Make sure they check your left hip, make sure that's rotating and stuff like that. Cause oftentimes with pitchers, if you're overthrown with your arm, it's because you're lacking something. You could be lacking rotation in the left hip. So you're overcompensating with that right arm. So make sure they check, make sure you have good mobility of your hips and that left hip is strong.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I've started like practicing over the past few years, is come to realize like it's all about like hip and trunk mobility. And so that's one thing like I addressed with like my trainer out here, was like working on our hips and like the internal and external rotation of them. So I think that's helped out a lot.
There's a big, people don't realize with the golf swing and pitching, the mechanics are pretty similar. I mean, you're gaining your velocity, as the youths, with pitchers, and the same thing with young golfers, is they're like Gumby. So they're able to generate that power and force with their arm. But once you get older, you can't do that. And you learn that, your power's coming from your legs and pushing off the ground, and then it's transferring up into your core. And then the arm is the last part of it.
Yeah.
And your legs, I mean, are like tree trunks now. I mean, I remember, seeing you when you came in the clinic, when you were working with me, to then when you were pitching in the College World Series, it's like, damn, I mean, thick, you got to have, it comes from there.
Definitely.
So are you going to let your kids play baseball or softball?
Yeah, we did T-ball this past fall, and then they went into basketball, and then they're doing a basketball again because in Arizona it's too hot out. It's like 112 out right now. So
ouch.
You get all your indoor sports in the winter or in the summer out here. But yeah, they have T-ball starting again in September, I believe. So, and then it's like I think we'll probably do flag football again. Like they're old enough now to do flag football. So, but yeah, they're kind of doing it all. They like everything.
What's it like having them out there now? I know this is the last year and a half you've had them out there, but your first year, everyone was back, east.
It's good. It just makes it easier. Like knowing like when I go on a road trip, I'm only gone for like 7 or 10 days at a time, rather than like a month or 2 months, like in between seeing them, or they coming out to like stay with me on the road trips, like for a weekend or whatever it may be. But just having a little bit more stability from them, I think kind of helps them out. And just having our home base here for like spring training and then Chase, it just makes it a lot easier, kind of just centrally located.
Yeah. Come on, man, you got to take them on the road. I guess you can't now with the kids being in school. I remember I have a friend who's good friends with Ken Griffey Jr. and I got to spend a weekend with him years ago. And he was telling me his wife was there, and that the kids went on the road with him. The whole family went on the road. He was the guy in the middle of the night changing diapers and feeding babies.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. I mean, they've been on a couple road trips, but just with our youngest, it's hard. The boys travel well, but she's like her adjusting. Like maybe when she gets like 3 or 4, it'll be a lot easier. But they go to a lot of the games at Chase, which is nice. That's only like 20 minutes from our house. That's a lot easier because they have like the childcare for them. So if they don't want to watch the game, they'll just put them in the childcare, which cool. They end up just playing the whole time. So they love it. But they went to Miami earlier this year, which is like a sick trip everyone loves to go on because we stay at a hotel right on like Key Biscayne, which is like a little barrier island out there, and so it's literally like a resort hotel we stay at where it's like right on the beach and the pool and all this stuff. So a lot of the families were there, and so they loved that. They didn't even go to the games; they just came straight for the hotel and the beach. So, but the boys are pretty well traveled. They've been to I think 2000. So yeah, last year they couldn't do anything, which sucked. But they've been to Wrigley, they've been to Philly, they've been to Mets, DC, Miami. They went to Tampa Bay a couple years ago, so they bounced around a little bit. Seen more stadiums than some average 6-year-olds.
Yeah, I bet they're starting to be able to understand it. I bet it's probably pretty cool now to be able to, hey, that's my dad on TV, or that's my dad pitching now.
Yeah, no, they will. So it's kind of like embarrassing sometimes. Like if we go out, like we just walk, like going in the store and someone's wearing the Diamondbacks and like, hey, my dad plays on that team. I'm just like, I'm just like, hey, like shut up. But it's like, I don't know. I'm torn between like not wanting them to say anything and them like being like proud. So it's kind of, it's like a fine line with it, but it's pretty cool. Like when they come and watch games and they figure it out. And like them having like their favorite players on the team now, it's like who they root for and stuff like that.
How's your wife liking it now? Being a major
She's adapting. Yeah. I mean, I think she's just adapting to it. Like you said earlier, she's the best. She's a trooper with it. So it's definitely tough. Like when the kids can be driving her nuts and I'm in the middle of like a 12-day road trip and I'm in a hotel, like sleeping in, like going out to eat on my own schedule and all this. And she's like, yeah, I've been up like since 6 and all these kids are doing this and that. So, but I mean, she's good. I'm grateful for it. So.
Yeah, make sure you tell her I'm thankful and grateful for allowing you to come on the podcast today.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble. I know I made the mistake. Good. I think I thought it was your birthday and you're like, no, man, it's my wife's birthday. It's confusing, man.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood you got 2 Taylor Clarks?
The 2 Taylors will get you.
Yeah.
It was funny. Like the other day I had a call. I was like on the phone with like Apple or something. Like I was like, I didn't understand like these charges I was getting. And the guy's like, do you have another account? Like, and I was like, oh no, like my wife's also Taylor. And he's like, oh, well, it's this Taylor's making all these like charges like for the games or whatever. It turns out it was like the kids like making the like in-app like purchases on her phone. And so, but the guy was confused. He was like, why do you have like 2 Taylor's accounts? He's like, I have a Taylor Grove Clarke and a Taylor Clarke. And he's like, he was all thrown off by it. So.
That's funny. I'm sure that's going to be an issue forever and ever, man.
Yeah, definitely. The kids are starting to figure it out too. It's like, Daddy, what's your name? Like when they're like practicing the writing and they're like, oh, like what's mommy's name? And then it's just like the same. And they're like, wait, you have the same name? It's like, yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck on your rehab. I'll be watching for your return. I know it's looking bleak for this season, but I guess you try and build on for next year, right?
Yeah, just got to grind out the season. So see what happens.
All right, bud. Well, best of luck. Let me know if you ever need anything and keep chugging, keep trying. We're proud of you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Best of luck, bud. Say hi to your wife.
All right, I will.
Thank you. Bye.